Hello, good morning, and thanks very much for joining us on Camnet TV today, Friday, 29th of December. It's a breakfast show, and thank you very much for joining us in the studio. I am with Vincent Piri. Vincent, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Abdullah. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine.
The month, we are concluding.
We're concluding the month as well as the year.
Yes.
Yeah, how has been 2023?
No, I think so far so good. We can't complain. I think it has been wonderful. One or two things, but we are a project in the making.
In the making.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
You know, we are a continuous project.
Yeah.
All right, our viewers, thank you very much for joining us once more, as I mentioned. And today's edition, as you are aware, we focus on business. And today we are looking, as we are closing the year, we are looking at the 2023 business outlook. We are going to be zooming some stories. And of course, we have an economist who is going to join us to help us discuss 2023, just a breakdown and summary of 2023 as far as business developments are. Right about now, we are getting into the health corner, where we get to get some tips as far as health issues are concerned.
Hi, welcome to the Health Corner on the Breakfast Show here on Camnet TV. I am Dr. Nawina Lotto. So this week we have been talking about hypertension, and we have discussed so many things about hypertension, and we say that hypertension, most people do not even know that they have hypertension. So it's important for you to get checked. We discussed that hypertension is a blood pressure that is elevated, or high blood pressure that is more than 140 and above, and that many people who have hypertension, their cause is not even known why they have hypertension. But there are others that might have other diseases that might predispose them to have hypertension. Diseases like diabetes, kidney disease, and so many other endocrine diseases like hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism. So we also say that hypertension can have symptoms, but most of the times people don't even have any symptoms of hypertension. But some people might present with having headaches, having bleeding from the nose, shortness of breath, dizziness. And these are non-specific symptoms. And sometimes if an organ is already damaged, they might present with symptoms based on the organ that is damaged. We also say that hypertension can be treated, and that you need to take this treatment for your entire life, because hypertension might be controlled, but it doesn't go away. So if you stop the medication, your blood pressure will keep increasing, and you end up having several complications in the body. And some of the complications that we talked about are that hypertension can cause heart diseases. It can cause congestive heart failure. It can cause coronary artery disease. And it can cause damage to the brain, causing a stroke. It can also cause kidney diseases and cause end-stage kidney failure. And so your kidneys might not function well, and even cause blindness in the eyes. So today we'll be discussing how you can prevent yourself from having hypertension, and also how you can be able to control your blood pressure. Even as you are taking your medication, you need to be able to control your blood pressure through certain activities that you do every day. And so these are lifestyle modifications. These are some of the things that you need to implement in your lifestyle. So these include, number one, you need to be able to lose weight. So if you are somebody who is obese, or overweight, then it means that you need to be able to lose weight. And by losing weight has shown to improve your blood pressure. So if you have high blood pressure and you are obese or overweight, try to lose some weight, and then you see that your blood pressure will even reduce as well. The other thing that you need to do is to limit your alcohol intake. So if you're somebody that drinks so much alcohol, try to reduce the amount of alcohol that you drink, because reducing your alcohol intake has been shown to also reduce high blood pressure. The other thing that you can do is reduce how much salt you eat in your food. Avoid putting too much salt in your food, and even putting salt when you're eating in the food that you're eating. Avoid putting extra salt. Also, salt can be found in so many other foods that are being sold, especially fast foods and even snacks. So try to avoid foods that have high salt in them. So if you check some of the labels of the foods, they might be saying they have sodium, and that means that they have a lot of salt. So try to check how much sodium the food has to be able to know whether there is so much sodium, which is salt, or not. The other thing that you can do is increase eating foods that are rich in potassium, calcium, magnesium. And this includes so many fruits and so many vegetables. Bananas are very high in potassium, and so many fruits and so many other vegetables are also good sources of potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Eat a lot of nuts as well. Nuts have got so many benefits to the body, and they will help to reduce your blood pressure. So some of the other things that you can do to be able to reduce your blood pressure is to exercise. Make sure that you keep your body active. You need to be able to exercise for at least 30 minutes every day for 5 days to 6 days in a week. It's important that you keep your body active and exercise. Exercise has been shown to improve blood pressure as well. It helps to reduce blood pressure by even up to 10 millimeters of mercury. So it's important that you exercise every day and keep your body active. So today we are learning that hypertension can be prevented by our lifestyle changes, and even those that have hypertension can be able to reduce their blood pressure just by implementing certain lifestyle changes. So these include exercising, eating healthy, and losing weight if you are obese, and also limiting your alcohol and salt intake. So these are some of the things that you can be able to do at home to prevent yourself from having hypertension or to control your blood pressure. This has been the talk for today. I do hope you have learned something, and I do hope you have learned so many things from the other sessions that we had this week. And that's the end for today. Thank you so much for watching.
That was Dr. Nawina Mufaya there telling us about hypertension and how it can be prevented. Also the eating habits, how you can prevent it through food. I think no wonder they say we are what you eat. Yeah. It's very important to watch what you eat, as you know, food it's about healthy. Always,
Always. Look at the kind of diseases we're having today. I think it's important that we we always watch what we eat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hope you have picked 1 or 2 or 3 things there. I am Afias Kaptura in the studio this morning with Vincent Piri. We are lapping up there. This is our last breakfast show in 2023, and we are looking at the economic outlook of the country, picking some highlights. We're going to have a guest who is an economist, Mr. Ikabongo Muya. We are going to be having a discussion in terms of how 2023 has been talking about the economy. Let's get into the money market, see how the kwacha is faring. Alright, the euro there is buying at 28 kwacha 23 ngwe, selling at 28 kwacha 78 ngwe. The Great British Pound is buying at 32 kwacha 44 ngwe, selling at 33 kwacha 8 ngwe. That is the South African Rand is buying at 1 kwacha 37 ngwe, selling at 1 kwacha 40 ngwe. The US dollar is buying at 25 kwacha 41 ngwe, selling at 25 kwacha 91 ngwe, and we have seen that is the upward trend of the kwacha, especially in relation to the US dollar. It's the upward trend that we are witnessing there.
Yeah, I think on a daily basis, the dollar is getting away from the kwacha by 10 ngwe, that is every day.
Oh yeah.
And we hope as we get into the new year next week, will be somewhere better. We don't want to reach 26 kwacha per dollar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And this is part of the discussion we're also going to be discussing with the economists going forward. What practical measures can government put in place? We have seen that towards the end of the year, the kwacha has been indeed performing badly. So I think it's in line with what practical measures the government can put in place coming, going into 2024 as far as the kwacha is concerned. I think right about now we can start zooming some of the stories that we have. Remember the movement for multi-party democracy yesterday, they were in the picture as well.
For a very long time.
For a very long time, they come back to have a discussion in terms of the current affairs and also just their reflections as far as 2023 is concerned. So we can just go into that story. The opposition movement for multi-party democracy MMD president Nevas Mumba has encouraged the UPND government, the United Party for National Development UPND-led government, to constantly engage the Zambian people and explain to them the hardships that the country is faced with and mitigation measures. Dr. Mumba says the economic hardships the country is faced with will pass as the government has showed political will to address them. Meanwhile, the MMD leader, who is also former Republican vice president, has urged the former ruling Patriotic Front not to cry foul over the divisions in their party, as they also did the same to their predecessors. Dr. Mumba says former Republican President Edgar Lungu should be the last person to talk about the fight against corruption. I think this is in relation to the statement that the former head of state made as regards to the resignation of the Foreign Affairs Minister and International Cooperation, that is Tenika Kubo. Let's get into that story.
2023 has been a politically charged year, with cries over the shrinking democratic space in the country being a motion of debate. Politicians, civil society organizations and political activists, among others, have accused government of restricting the opposition from engaging their supporters. Also, political divisions in the former ruling Patriotic Front have seen most opposition leaders and political activists pointing their fingers at the state to be behind the disunity in PF. But for the movement for multi-party democracy, MMD, their opinion is contrary to all others, as they dig out what happened to them when they lost power to the Patriotic Front.
Our colleagues held a convention outside the authority of this leadership with the help of the ruling party at that time. When we reported to the police, so those police who went to disperse them became the protectors of that illegal convention. I know the way you're looking at me sounds very familiar, and you're wondering, has it happened before? Well, there were policemen around that illegal convention that was set against the movement for multi-party democracy. I wish people could be consistent and call wrong today and call wrong tomorrow. It should not only become wrong when it works against you. It should be wrong because it is wrong. It must be right because it is right.
Speaking during the end-of-year press briefing in Lusaka, MMD President Nevas Mumba took time to speak to the economic hardships facing the country.
The high cost of essential commodities like meal, cooking oil, foodstuffs has aggravated the social status and security of our nation. Any party in government that finds itself in this situation will face relentless criticism. UPND needs to have an ongoing conversation with this nation and create hope that if we all hold together, we shall see a better tomorrow. UPND must generate hope in the midst of despair. Leaders are dealers in the commodity of hope. Beyond hope, however, UPND must pool all their resources together and seek to find a short-term solution to mitigating the high cost of milling while waiting for a long-term solution.
The former Republican Vice President could not go without responding to former Republican President Edgar Lungu's statement on the resignation of former Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation Minister Stanley Kakubo, where he questioned President Hakainde Hichilema's fight against corruption.
I'm not saying UPND must be doing what they used to do, but there are certain people that can make certain statements who have the moral right to make a statement, and there are some who don't have a moral right. In this case, my older brother, ECL, does not have a moral right to make this statement. And I must make it very, very clear that at the end of the day, what we saw with Honorable Kakubo is what happens in developed democracies. In the PF government, our position as MMD and our experience is not a good one. It has been a very problematic one, and for many Zambians as well. And I think on the issues of corruption, maybe we should ask President Lungu not to say too much right now, because Zambians are still hurting. Zambians are still processing the kind of corruption that was in PF. And the fact that the law has been slow and the process has been slow does not mean that those people are not going to be held accountable. So I think that former president should have congratulated Kakubo for resigning.
Vincent Piri for Camnet TV News, Lusaka.
That is Dr. Nevas Mumba, there, president of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, MMD, giving his views as the year 2023 comes to an end. Well, quite punchy there. He seemed to come out strong on certain issues.
Yeah, and I think there is one point I might have left out in that report.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying the country's political space as it is right now, we are not in good position when it comes to politics.
Mm-hmm.
We are in a bad position right now, and even where we are going. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And also the other issue perhaps is the issue where you talked in terms of the current economic hardships are being caused by were caused by the former government, the Patriotic Front, which is somewhat in agreement with what the current government
is saying. Yes.
Yes. So we can move on into business now. The Zambia Development Agency has recorded $2.1 billion from the 231 actualized investment projects in 2023. ZDA Board Chairperson Biemba Maliti says the actualized investments also resulted in 25,890 jobs. Meanwhile, Professor Biemba has also disclosed that $39.9 billion in committed investment was recorded in 2023 compared to $8.6 billion in 2022. Let's get into that story. As the year comes to an end in a few days, the Zambia Development Agency, ZDA, has held its end-of-year press conference to highlight achievements in 2023. Speaking during the event, ZDA Board Chairperson Biemba Maliti disclosed that investment commitments in 2023 increased to close to $40 billion from only $8.6 billion in 2022. Professor Biemba attributed the increased investment commitments to sound leadership by President Hakainde Hichilema through his international engagements and stable economic policies in the country.
The increase in investment is represented by 364%, just from last year to this year. In this scenario, the manufacturing sector recorded the highest investment. Thank you very much for that, worth $19.7 billion. So manufacturing is at the top, followed by energy, $8.9 billion.
In terms of actualized investments, Professor Biemba says the country recorded $2.1 billion of investment with 25,890 jobs created.
2.1 billion actualized. and 25,890 jobs have been created.
Meanwhile, speaking during the same event, ZDA Director General Albert Harwampa says the agency in 2024 will maximize on digital technology in its interaction with would-be investors.
The management of ZDA, but that cannot happen physically because of the traffic of investors, the interest in Zambia. You can only do it on a platform which we call the virtual deal room. So this platform will operate 24/7 to give an opportunity to any investor in this corner of this world to make sure that they can go in, negotiate deals, close transactions.
For Camnet TV News, Afias Kaptula, Lusaka. You are still watching Camnet TV Breakfast Show with me, Afias Kaptula, and Vincent in the studio, and we're just zooming stories that made headlines in our news yesterday and this morning. You can be part of this program by calling in as well. You can give your views on the stories that we are zooming in, and also the economic outlook. How do you view the economy in 2023? How has been business for you in 2023, and what do you expect as we get into 2024? Moving on, another business story, we have Zambia's annual inflation rate, which has surged to 13.1% in December 2023 due to price movements of selected food items. Zambia Statistical Agency ZAMBIA'S Statistician General Mulenga Musepa told a media briefing in Lusaka that the annual inflation for December 2023 increased to 13.1% from 12.9% recorded in November 2023. Mr. Musepa says this meant that an average prices of goods and services increased by 13.1% between December 2022 and December 2023. Mr. Musepa said that the annual food inflation for December 2023 was recorded at 14.2% compared to 13.1% the previous month. We can get into that story as well.
The monthly food inflation was recorded at 1% from 0.9% in November, and mainly driving that were meats and vegetables. The various types of meats are indicated there. However, the monthly non-food inflation remained unchanged at 0.9%, but of course we had general price increases across pharmaceutical products and purchase of vehicles, and the items are basically listed. Then let's look at the overall monthly inflation developments. Out of that, you have now the overall monthly at 1% compared to 0.9% in the month of November 2023. The annual food inflation rose to 14.2% from 13.7% in November 2023, and again, like on a monthly basis, except here there's an additional item. We had cereals, meats, and fish, mainly explaining that increase in food inflation. However, there was a slight slowdown in annual non-food inflation. Now, basically, this is on account of just the base effect of transport division, transport inflation. You will remember that in the past months, we've been showing the upward trend in transport inflation, and we did say that this has had a bearing in terms of the continued increase in the overall inflation.
That is Mr. Musepa there, ZAMBIA'S Statistician General, giving us the outlook in terms of how the inflation and other economic factors are faring as far as November and December and also 2023 in general. You can give us your comment via using the phone numbers that are on the screen there. You can get in touch with us and give us your comment in terms of how you look at the economy, how it has been faring, and also just at your personal level in terms of how as business, also your expectations as we are going into 2023. Remember that over the weekend we're going to be crossing over into 2024. Vincent, you can give us some of the stories that we have as well this morning.
Okay, so the stories I have here are coming from the communities. The first one coming from Chawama, where residents there from Patuka area in Chawama compound have continued to express concern over the abandoned drainage which is causing flooding. One of the concerned residents, Michael Jerez, says that the Chawama area member of parliament, Tasila Lungu, on Tuesday visited the area with a promise of of engineers resolving the matter, but nothing has materialized. Mr. Jerez says that the abandoned drainage is now causing flooding in the area, hence the need for authorities to move in quickly. And the other story that is in relation to that is where the Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit DMMU National Coordinator Gabriel Pollen has revealed that DMMU has started a short-term flood relief exercise following flooding in different parts of the country due to heavy rains. Let's get to see more of these stories.
Authorities have not worked on the diverted abandoned drainage which caused flooding of about 15 houses in Lusaka's Chawama compound behind Cheshire Homes more than a week after the incident. On December 17, several residents in this area woke up to flooded homes which left some household goods damaged. A check by Camnet News Thursday found the drainage unattended to, with residents attempting to bury it even using extreme means such as seen here, using garbage. The concerned residents in this area have disclosed that the abandoned drainage has become a source of conflict.
So pametina amba kuivala ba kuna bevana bori dandaula ati manzi yange na manyumba. So na ise tipemba uti i drainage tigwirizane ivaliwe drainage chifukana wewe vashita affect manzi yange na manyumba. Na ise tikachisegula yange na futi manyumba. So chametipemba tifuna chabeti gwirizane chivaliwe chabeji. Mr. Jere says area member of parliament Tasila Lungu visited the scene and assured a solution, but nothing is coming forth.
Engineer was but up to now, engineer lelo so anaoneke already mkayangana papatuka pajamanze manzi ya paka, then manje mkayangana drainage yatu imanje because of my block manzi bantu kutia saende kumayadi kwao bambotenga mabini manje baponya manje drainage kutia shite bwanji ti block manzi. So please, we need your response, otherwise is atletera cholera yamba kudala mkangana mchawama muno manje cholera tingenera. So my tizaenda bwanji tizankhala bwanji if ngati mteko city yanganapo zachita bwanji zachita say.
With the continuous rains being experienced in Lusaka, it can only be hoped that authorities will move in to prevent the reoccurrence of the flooding of houses which was experienced here. For Camnet TV News, Afias Kaptula, Lusaka.
Most parts of Zambia's capital city, Lusaka, experience flooding almost each and every rainy season. The continuous flooding has been attributed to, by many stakeholders, to the lack of proper drainage systems and the indiscriminate disposal of waste in most areas, which has led to rainwater diverting into homes and public spaces. On Wednesday, the 26th of December, Camnet TV aired various stories from various parts of Lusaka concerning floods, namely Kabanana Township, Kamwala Clinic, and the Central Business District, where citizens raised concerns of what measures are being put in place to mitigate the issue of flooding.
If they make the drainage out of the tarmac, it will be very easy, but even the council to remove the sand or the dirt in under the drainage is very difficult. I'm sure it will be make another system, not to maintain, because the water, there's no way where to go.
Responding to the raised concerns, Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit National Coordinator Gabriel Pollen says the unit has put up short-term relief measures to mitigate floods in Lusaka. Mr. Pollen states that going forward, they are working closely with the Lusaka City Council so as to follow the correct principles of urban planning.
As government, will continue to implement short-term solutions such as pumping of water, pushing it away where it has nowhere to go. And then secondly, we're also trying to push on issues of creating drainages, excavation, creating temporal canal to ensure that the water continues to flow. As you know, this is a function of decades of poor urban development, and we'll continue to work aggressively at every successive turn to ensure that these places get the relief that they require. but importantly, going forward, working closely with the council, we have to follow the correct principles of urban planning.
One is left to wonder when flooding will be an issue of the past for Lusaka City. Cherish Sibote for Camnet News, Lusaka.
Issues of flooding, Mr. Kaptula. This is a historical problem that we always talk about when it's rainy season, especially in Lusaka. And what's more concerning is the floods do not even spare spaces, public spaces like hospitals, clinics, among others.
No, I think the flooding for this year is the flooding for this year. Yes, I think my observation is also saddening. Remember that last year we had one of the worst floods, where Kamwana Clinic in Lusaka and several other places were flooded. So perhaps it was expected that authorities were going to start in terms of coming up with a capital project of making sure that flooding is mitigated in Lusaka. But well, that is the DMMU coordinator now going into the CBD with the flooding of this year to say we are going to put in place immediate measures to mitigate flooding. What was being done from last year? Because last year we remember we had a clinic in Kamwana that was flooded, several houses, people lost. So I think what was being done from last year up to now?
They had to wait for the rains again.
It's a big question.
Yeah.
Yes.
And okay, so one of the concerns that were being raised in those stories is the issue of cholera. And we are getting updates almost every day, and the numbers are also concerning. So as of yesterday, there's a story also here where 5 people died of cholera in the last 24 hours, with the nation recording over 100 new cases as the disease spreads to 12 additional districts. Now, Minister of Health Sylvia Masebo revealed in a statement that the current outbreak, which was first recorded in Lusaka in October, has extended to other districts. She revealed that currently there are 207 patients admitted across various cholera treatment centers. In Lusaka, the patients are admitted at Chirenje, Kanyama, Chawama, Matero, Chelston, Chipata, and Levi Mwanawasa Teaching Hospital. She said of the 2,473 cumulative total, the health centers have discharged 2,195 in the last 3 months, representing the recovery rate of over 97% and case facility ratio of 2.9%. Now, looking at those numbers, Mr. Kaptula, we are just getting into rain seasons and we are recording over 100 cases in a day. I think, to be precise, if I'm not mistaken, we should have recorded somewhere 116 cases just within 24 hours. And we're just getting into the rain season.
Yeah, it is worrisome, and we hope that very good measures are going to be put in place to ensure that the numbers do not escalate. Of major concern is the issue of garbage, and also the indiscriminate selling of food items. I'm sure the minister yesterday invoked the statutory instrument to criminalize the street vending to ensure that no one sell food in indiscriminate areas, which is a good move, and we had to go on the ground to see what the council is doing, because remember that the council is countrywide. They have removed the vendors from trading from the streets.
Yes.
And with this ban that has been put in place by the minister to ensure that even those who are buying from those who are selling from the streets, it's a criminal offense. So we hope to see better enforcement this time around from the councils, as we are aware that there's a lot of food that is being sold on the streets. But in terms of safety, there are questions of safety, and also even the source of the food. Where is it coming from?
Okay.
So we hope and see that.
Yeah, we'll wait and see what measures will be put in place. Let's get to hear what the minister said yesterday as she gave an update on the cholera outlook.
Members of the press, countrymen and women, I'm sad to inform you that in the last 24 hours, we've recorded 111 new cases across the country. And across the country, we have so far lost 5 patients. In terms of the total number of people who have died since January 2023 to date, we have lost 74 lives cumulatively. And these have arisen from 2,473 cases that were reported. So out of that 74, we lost them cumulatively. Currently, across the country, we have 207 patients admitted at different cholera treatment centers. In particular, in Lusaka district, these are admitted in Chilenje, Kanyama, Chawama, Matero, Charleston, Chipata, and finally at the Levi Mwanawasa Cholera Treatment Center, which is our biggest cholera center, where cases are being sent to those which are serious. Elsewhere in the country, we have admitted patients in Chongwe district, Chilanga, Petauke, Mumbwa, Kabwe, and Chibombo.
Okay, you have heard for yourselves. Those are the cases that were recorded in the last 24 hours, and probably measures that be put in place to ensure that we mitigate the further escalation of these cases. And as it stands, Kanyama is the hotspot, epicenter.
I think that has been the trend for years, and even from what the GMMU talked about in terms of long-term planning of cities, I think it should be considered. There should be the planning of the drainage system, the planning of markets. It should be a holistic approach to ensure that it should not be a way of life. Cholera, dirtiness, it should not be a way of life. It should be just in terms of a holistic way of planning. We plan Soweto Market, we plan Kanyama, we plan all these compounds. But it should be a gradual process to ensure that it is of consensus.
Yeah.
Well, moving on the stories, we are zooming in as we come to the end of the stories that we had this morning. We move to the courts, where an Egyptian national, Michael Boutros, who claimed to be a victim of the KK alleged gold scam, has maintained his objection in the High Court not to have the Director of Public Prosecution seize his properties and forfeit it to the state, alleging that some Zambian government officials were involved in the operation. According to the latest submission filed in the Lusaka High Court, Mr. Boutros contends that there is no basis in which his jet can be seized and forfeited to the state because it landed at the KK airport after getting clearance from the Civil Aviation Authority and the Zambia Air Force. Another court story, opposing Patriotic Front, cadre and businessman Francis Muchemo has asked the Lusaka Magistrate Court to grant him access to his seized properties by the Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC, in order to enable him prepare his defense. Muchemo alleges that the respondent evidence attesting to the alleged value of the properties was false and requires access to his properties for him to prepare his own valuation report, which is consistent. Let us get into those two stories.
An Egyptian national and renowned international businessman has told the Lusaka High Court that he is a victim of a well-orchestrated fraudulent scam. The Egyptian national Michael Boutros has maintained his objection for the DPP to forfeit his property to the state. According to his latest submissions in the Lusaka High Court, Boutros, who was arrested on Monday, August 14, 2023, on allegations of espionage and other offences but later discharged on a nolle prosequi, contends that his jet cannot be forfeited to the Zambian government because it followed all procedures of clearance and was allowed by Zambia Air Force and the Civil Aviation Authority. In his affidavit in opposition to originating notice of motion for an application for non-conviction-based forfeiture order of tainted property filed before the Lusaka High Court, Boutros submits that it was clear on 13 August 2023 that he was a victim of a well-thought scam which involved several public servants, including airport personnel, who facilitated the scammers to have access to restricted areas to illegally misrepresent him that the transaction was legitimate, being conducted by legitimate prominent Zambians under legal authority of the relevant government departments. The Egyptian explains that prior to his arrival in Zambia, a payment of $940,000 was made to Ritam Holding Zambia Limited to ensure all statutory taxes and requirements relating to gold transactions were paid and complied with. Botros says after clearance from the Civil Aviation Authority and the Zambia Air Force was made, he was shocked by the level of deception which is demonstrated in the arrest of several Zambian nationals, including Francis Maluwa Makai Mateo, an officer from the Office of the President. The businessman also explains that he spent 60 days in Zambia whilst investigations were ongoing without any charge of smuggling or being in possession of unlicensed weapons because the firearms on the aircraft were handled by security officers and are legally registered. He argues that the firearms were left to the jet and brought to the Zambian soil by the joint team of investigation officers. Botros also argues that $5,697,700 that are subject to these proceedings never left the jet because there are funds he obtained as benefits in Egypt, and claims some of the money was extorted from him by officers of the joint investigation team after they threatened his life and not to clear the jet to leave. This notice of motion before the Lusaka High Court follows the Director of Public Prosecution application in October 2023 to the Economic and Financial Crimes Court to have properties seized in the Goldgate scam forfeited to the Zambian government on account of them being tainted properties. Nelson Zulu for Camnet News, Lusaka. Opposition Patriotic Front cadre and businessman Francis Muchemwa has requested the Lusaka Magistrate Court to grant him access to his properties which were seized by the Anti-Corruption Commission (SCC) in order to facilitate the preparation of his defense. Muchemwa, in an affidavit in support of summons filed at the Lusaka Magistrate Court, applies to the court to have access to his properties seized by the SCC under a seizure notice issued on January 11, 2022. The accused alleges that the respondent adduced false evidence in relation to the alleged value of the properties which were seized, and having access to his properties would make him produce his own valuation reports of the properties for the consideration of the court. Muchemwa indicates that it is the right of every accused person to be granted adequate facilities for the preparation of defense. In this matter, Muchemwa 38, alongside two others connected to Freetech Networks Zambia Limited and Altitude Properties Limited, faced 10 counts of possessing property suspected to be proceeds of crime and failure to comply with the provisions of the Income Tax Act. In count 1, allegations are that Muchemwa on dates unknown but between January 1, 2015 and August 31, 2022, jointly and whilst acting together with others unknown, did possess a property located at Silverest off Great East Road, reasonably suspected of being proceeds of crime. In count 2, Muchemwa on the same dates in Chongwe, jointly and whilst acting together with others unknown, did possess another property located at Silverest off Great East Road, reasonably suspected of being proceeds of crime. However, the court acquitted him on 3 counts of failure to comply with the provisions of the Income Tax Act. The PF cadre is expected to open his defense in this matter. Nelson Zulu for Camnet News, Lusaka.
Those are the stories we have been zooming in this morning. In terms of headlines, the stories that we had in the news yesterday, you can have a comment on those stories by utilizing the numbers on your screen. You give us your comment, and remember, I did mention that today we are discussing the 2023 economic outlook, and I did mention also that an economist is going to join us in the studio. He is in, and this is Mr. Ikabongo Muya, who is going to help us review 2023, at least just a summary of what has been obtaining in the year under review. Mr. Muya, good morning and a warm welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. Just for starters, 2023 has been a hype of activities, of course, also anxieties as far as economics is concerned, from the mining sector, the kwacha, which has been not very stable, and it is also closing on a very low note. What is just your general description of 2023 in terms of economic outlook?
Moderately optimistic, actually. If you look at where we began, I think the trend in terms of the depreciation of the kwacha has been like this for over a year now. I think from July 2022, we started seeing that downward trend. And where we are today, of course, it's much lower than where it was in July 2022. And then we see the aspect of inflation. The figures are not good enough, as well as the aspects to do with inflation as well as the cost of living. So these have been, well, in a way, not been stable for a long time now. But I also talk about the optimism, because if you look at the aspect of the national budget that was presented in September, you notice that there are certain optimistic changes, that measures that are going to be put in place in the coming years, so that we arrest some of those challenges, the economic challenges that we have been facing as a country.
Now, in terms of the kwacha, the depreciation of the kwacha, there are a lot of sentiments around this issue, and mostly, especially economists, yourselves, you are attributing it to lack of production in the country. We are closing 2023. In relation to the budget and also government policies, are you seeing in terms of the kwacha gaining and also production in the country improving as we get in 2023?
So like I mentioned, the trends, we usually see these changes over time. And the trend has been, in the first quarter, we see a bit of stability. Towards the end of the year, we see also the depreciation that we have witnessed now. And this has been for a long time. But there are a number of factors that we can attribute to why the kwacha is behaving the way it is. Most of them, of course, we can talk about the internal factors, but there are also external factors that are beyond the control of the mandate of Minister of Finance or any government official. In the sense that, if you look at domestic factors, like you mentioned rightly, we have production levels that slumped, and this is due to, you see, we had those challenges in the mining sector. We actually rely on copper so much, as you may know, and there are also these strategies trying to ensure that we diversify the economy into other sectors, which is also very much welcome. But when the kwacha is not doing very well, as we have seen for the past few months, and actually for a long time now, the mining sector has had those challenges, and as a result, we have also seen that most of the macroeconomic variables, especially the exchange rate and inflation, have been actually tumbling. So measures have been put in place, and we expect that some of the changes will actually start to realize some fruits. Yes.
You have rightly said in terms of the mining sector, which is our major export earner in terms of forex.
Yes.
We have seen that there are movements at KCM and also Konkola copper mines, where government has announced in terms of partners to revamp the operations at these mines. What is your take on that?
Well, we have been for a long time, like I mentioned, operating below capacity, meaning our production has not been at the level that we usually, or even our potential production level. And as such, trying to resolve, or some of the measures that government has put in place, trying to resolve some of those challenges and finding new partners and new investors in the area, I think it will have a positive, as we expect, a positive outcome in terms of stabilizing some of those macroeconomic variables that are very unstable at the moment. So the mining sector being our mainstay, of course, as a country we have been reliant on it for a long time, and we also have to see how we can add value, not only produce the volume of production, like how much we produce, we also have to try and add value so that we sell more finished products. I think in a way you can see also government trying to create an avenue where we can actually try to add value to the copper that we export. So the volume of production is good. If we have those issues resolved in the mining sector, as it is showing, indicating already, one aspect that we'll see is increase in the volume of production. But it's not just that, because the amount of money that you get from selling a primary product is not equal, cannot even be equated to the amount of money that you would actually realize when you added value, if you added value to your products. So we also want to see beyond just talking about the volume of production, adding value to the copper so that we fetch more on the international market.
All right. You're watching Camnet TV Breakfast Show, and just about now we're having a discussion with Mr. Muya, who is an economist. As you are aware, today we're looking at the 2023 economic outlook. This being the last breakfast show we are hosting in 2023. God willing, Vincent, we're going to be meeting in 2024. Yeah. I think moving on, there has been a debate as well in terms of reforms that the government has put in place in the mining sector. Of the argument on government side has been the issue of ensuring that they attract investment in the country, where the debate in terms of issues of taxes and all. Are you satisfied with what has been put in place in the budget in terms of the taxes in the mining sector?
Well, we always have to have a starting point. So of course we know that we could realize more from that, but what is on the table right now is what we take. And this is more like a starting point. Mm-hmm. And having a starting point, we want to see that we attract investors at the same time. We want to retain them, not scare them away. Look, we are in a competitive environment. Mm-hmm. And we have countries like Congo, we have our neighboring countries that actually are able to produce even as much as we do. So to be able to attract and retain investors, especially in the mining sector, we need to make sure that our fiscal policies are attractive. And these fiscal policies have to be such that they do not scare away investors. So of course we could do more, and we think as we go on, we do more explorations, we attract more investors. I think what the government is currently doing is actually remarkable in trying to ensure that we attract as much as we can in terms of foreign investment in the sector of mining. But retaining them, it comes down now to those policies that I've mentioned. So those measures, of course, are a starting point, and we hope to make them more robust as we go on so that we can get the most from our resources.
Now, people have argued, Mr. Muya, saying those tax holidays that have been given to mines are contributing to the economic hardships that we are going through as a country.
So like I mentioned earlier, you have a situation where you want to remain competitive in the market. So these holiday or these measures that have been put in place, they are there to attract investors because we're in a competitive market, but also retain them so that we continue. It's like a starting point. As we continue to get better, we'll try to put some measures that actually benefit more but at this point I think these measures are actually adequate in that they help us attract and retain these investors. And that's what we want. We don't want a situation where people look at other options and leave us out because we are not competitive enough. So you want to remain relevant, you want to remain competitive in this market so that you don't lose out.
Okay, now in the 2024 budget, we expect citizens to start being taxed on every mobile money transaction they make. People received it with mixed feelings. What was your reaction, firstly, and what do you take on that one?
Well, you know, some of these measures that are put in place, especially this is the tax that has been, I think you've always seen when you're making transactions, you are always charged a particular surcharge, let's refer to it as such. And government has done that to raise money from all these different, so you have what is called domestic revenue sourcing. So you want to expand or broaden sources that you can actually get money from. So it is a marginal change. The idea is not to choke people transacting, but also it's not intended to choke people that are transacting, but to also allow government to raise some revenues through other means beyond what has traditionally been.
Okay, now I'll get back to the issue of productivity. We see again that it depends on the policies that government has put in place and probably the support that government channels to production. In the 2024 national budget, how do you take the support that has been channeled specifically to the agriculture sector and the mining sector so that we improve productivity as one sectors that contribute a lot to our economy?
Well, the agriculture sector is one of the major employer actually, especially in the rural area. So these policies are intended to ensure that the sector grows, and we cannot underscore the importance of, we cannot say, well, we cannot state the importance of the agriculture sector, because we already know, everybody knows, we cannot restate that. The agriculture sector is what we need for food security, but also it provides employment for the youths. The majority of the youths are actually employed in the agriculture sector, as well as we have it as one of the contributors to our overall national economic growth. Now, the measures that have been put in place are there to ensure that the existing people that are in the agriculture sector, not people that just go there because they've seen an opportunity this year, but people who want to take agriculture as a business and want longevity. They want to continue in the sector and grow themselves as they grow the economy from there. So these measures are intended not for immediate results, like, we'll see the results today. These are to sustain the economy over a long time. As you can see, the government has really been making moves to move away from the mono economy, like, high dependence on copper. Now we are moving to other sectors. So agriculture is one of the key sectors that we have a lot of potential in. Tourism is another sector. So these measures that have been put, especially for the fiscal budget 2024, I think they are intended not only to look at the immediate need, but the long-term need for the sector and the economy overall.
Okay, maybe before you chip in, Mr. Kaptula, there is a development in the energy sector where water levels have reduced in the Zambezi River, and that is to mean the production of electricity will be affected. Just to get how we need to invest in the energy sector being one of the fuel to economic development.
Yeah, so we have seen in terms of the rainfall pattern, we have seen that over the years we have seen a reduction, substantial reduction. Actually, one of the forecasts mentioned that we are going to have a long term in terms of drought, and that will actually not only affect the energy sector but also agriculture, because we depend on rainfall for the most part. I think non-commercial farmers actually depend on rainfall, and even most of these commercial farmers still use that as well. So in terms of the energy sector, we are talking about HEP, which is reliant on that, but we also have other resources like coal and whatnot. So although there are these issues about talking about the green economy and so on, in essence, what we see is a situation where I think we may have to diversify, think of other sources. We receive a lot of sunlight. I think over 9 months in a year, we have sunlight, which we can use for generation of power through solar panels and many other resources. So being reliant, especially for one of the key, like you rightly mentioned, fuel to the economy, we cannot leave the energy sector just depending on one dwindling resource, the water levels in the rivers that we have around. So there's need also to try and go green, try to diversify into other forms of energy like solar energy and others. Yes.
I think still on energy, even as we come to the end of the year, we have seen that yesterday there was a major development in terms of the Energy Regulation Board, where they have said that there are measures in terms of reverting to long-term reviews of petroleum products are underway. Do you think this is also going to bring stability in the economy in terms of long-term measures they are proposing?
Well, what we wish to have is stability, macroeconomic stability. And a few months ago, the president actually came out. This is a measure that has come because the president actually mentioned that we need to revert to quarterly reviews, unless there's a very huge external shock that pushes us to review. So I think that sentiment in itself created this idea or the notion that we are going back to a more stable pricing system, because you have these monthly reviews which affect your planning, which affect your the cost of doing business, your expected profits, and so on. Even at household level, even if you're not running a business, you do not know how much you use for your car or for whatever it is, a generator or something like that. So you want to have a stable price over a given period of time. And 3 months to me is actually okay, and many people will share that. I think many calls have been made, including from myself and many civil society organizations, that we needed to revert to that because it ensures stability. For 3 months, you know the price. Like it has been, I think you've seen from October to where we are today, the price of petroleum products has been the same for about 2-3 months now, which I think in a way, although it's high, but you are able to plan. So stability, if you eliminate any uncertainty in the market, you bring stability. So the monthly reviews were not consistent with what we expect for one who is trying to achieve economic stability, especially macroeconomic stability. So you want to ensure that the price is stable for a long time. You want to ensure that the price does not change. People are able to plan for 3 months that, well, our expenditure on fuel will be so much, and so on. And on just on the same issue, I think there has been calls to say, well, why is government not subsidizing fuel? I think that's a topic that has been buried now. You know that we want a cost-reflective price, and we want these monies that were used to subsidize fuel to go into other sectors like the free education, that is social spending, health and education, and so on. So these are different things that I think the national budget is actually keen to address. And I think in a way, coming back to the main issue, I think in a way we are going to see stability, especially price stability, because of the 3 months period that will be given.
All right, well, viewers, you are watching the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. In the studio, I am Apias Kaptura alongside Vincent Pili, and we are having a discussion with Mr. Muya, who is an economist, as we conclude the year. Remember that this is our last breakfast show for 2023, and we're just looking at the outlook, economic outlook, as far as major highlights of the year in terms of business of the nation. And also you can be part of this conversation by using the phone lines which are on the screens. You can give us your comment on how you feel the economy has performed, also your expectations going into 2024. Well, Mr. Muya, moving on, we have seen that the inflation, which is resulting in the high cost of living and also the increase in prices. Yesterday, the ZAMBIA'S did disclose that inflation for December has increased to 13.1% from around 12% in November. Just how do you make of these changes?
So, well, inflation is a misunderstood concept, I think, from many different individuals. They think, well, it's what is pushing. What inflation does is to reflect what is already existing. So when you are given a figure of inflation, we report at the end of the year or at the end of the month, or after we have collected data. So what happened? So it gives us a reflection of what has happened. So in short, on average, prices have been increasing. What is driving this? Food items, the prices of food and non-food items. If you look at what was made, I think, earlier this year, there was that change to increase the cost of buying maize for those who are buying a 50 kg bag. I think it moved from 180 to 280.
280.
Yes. So we're talking about inflation caused by those changes in food commodities. So driven by food prices, we have that change. And in itself, I think, didn't sit well, although it's actually reflective of the cost of doing, producing the maize and actually taking it to the market. And you say, well, the farmer has to get the best out of that. And how do you do that? You increase the price. But it has that negative effect. And this is where we are saying the food prices have actually driven the inflation to go up. Then the non-food items, we're talking about issues to do with the same fuel that we have been talking about. The imports that if you know, I'm sure you know that Zambia almost imports everything that we consume here. So we are dependent on prices that are coming from outside the country. So if we import goods and services at a high price, it will only mean that goods and services that are sold and imported into Zambia will become expensive. So this is what we are saying. Well, this figure in itself is a reflection of the increase in the price of food items and also in the non-food items, and this is why we have that figure. It just paints a picture that, well, in Zambia we have a challenge in terms of price stability, and we'll need to, I know the projections are there that next year it's going to be a little less compared to what we have today, and the target that we have been given by the central bank through the budget is that it will be between about 6 to 8%, which is still single digit, but now with a specific range that we want to allow. So in itself, this year it hasn't been very good in terms of the overall price level, but we expect that as production increases and certain measures being put in place, those things can actually be redressed.
I think talking about the increase or the instability in prices, I want to draw attention to the issue of meal meal, which is a topical issue. And in our news yesterday, we had one of the opposition leaders suggesting that government should find immediate solutions to the high prices of meal meal as they work on long-term measures, maybe increasing production, as we have seen that there is movements around, even the defense forces. They are moving in terms to go into cultivation. Do you think it is practical to find immediate measures, maybe short-term measures to the high prices of meal at this point of time where we are?
Well, the price of billy meal, I think for a long time, and I think this will not be received very well by many people in society, but I think in a way what we see is that for a long time farmers were actually getting less than what they deserved. You put in so much and you sell your commodity at a lower price. And in itself, I think what that move I mentioned, I alluded to earlier, where government increased the price of 50 kg back to by 100 kwacha, in itself, actually, it helps the farmer now to realize something that is near to what is expected. So you want the cost, again, it comes down to cost reflective prices. And the maize price that you see is cost reflective. And in itself, of course, you are buying the maize now at a higher price, but the one who's producing the maize is actually being appreciated to the tune that they invested in the production of maize. And I think in a way, this is why there has been that call that if you feel that there has been this change and it's not favorable, you could actually take advantage of the market by also producing so that you satisfy the market and get the difference. So, of course, it's a challenge. Many people cannot afford to purchase the commodity, and the move that you mentioned where the ZAMBIA'S has actually started selling the product at a lower price, I think these are some of the measures to try and mitigate some of those challenges, try to help the consumers that cannot afford.
I think we just hold your thought, we have a call. Hello, good morning, you are through to Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Hello, do we have a caller there? No, I think we have lost that caller. You can still go on.
Yeah. So I was talking about, yes, of course, the challenge that the high cost of living accompanied by the high price of maize, mealie meal on the market. Some of the measures, of course, immediate term is try to see if ZAMBIA'S and other wings can actually try to ensure that they produce the commodity and is available on the market for consumers to purchase at a more reasonable price. But in itself, the price that we see on the market is cost reflective. So you don't want to cheapen the product such that you discourage the suppliers of the maize. You look at the market works with demand and supply. So if you have the supply side, who are the farmers, being discouraged because the price of the commodity on the market is not attractive, then people will not go into agriculture. That's one end in terms of the supply. But the demand, we're talking about the consumers. On the side of consumers, you want to buy the commodity at a lower price. The supplier wants to get as much, and the consumer wants to get the lowest price on the market. So the market will meet at a point of equilibrium. And what we see now is that we are moving towards that sustainable point where both consumers and suppliers are okay, although in the immediate term it's not very favorable to the consumers because it's a sharp increase. But you don't want to discourage suppliers also
I
say,
think
well,
we
we're
can
getting
hold
a
your
lower
call.
price.
It seems the caller is back. Hello, good morning. Welcome to Camnet TV.
Yeah, good morning, sir. From Victor.
Sir, you can go ahead with your contribution.
Yes, so much, yes. I just wanted to find out from our economist from the panel.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, especially on the issue of fuel. Because we have just been talking about hydro, solar. Those are the only two issues which have been so dominant. But I'm also wondering, we heard about the Shantibu project, where we heard that the people can make fuel from the plastic and so on. But at the moment, that project has just died in natural death. What is happening from our government and also from the project, the project? Could I hear anything from the economists? Maybe talk about that issue.
Okay.
Thank you, I'm getting open from this.
Okay, thank you, sir, for coming through.
Thank you.
All right, I think that is a concern. It's what you mentioned. You touched on a bit earlier. You talked about diversifying the energy mix, and he's talking in terms of what is happening to the things that's been hearing in terms of maybe you can make fuel from waste, you can make fuel from this.
Okay, yeah. It's quite interesting. When we received that news and saw it, I think everyone saw it on social media where someone was saying, now we are putting this, it's a mixture of the original fuel and locally produced concoction, and you are able to put in the car. But the problem is that we have standards to follow. You cannot bring a commodity on the market that is not well researched. If it was that easy, we would all go there. But obviously, I'm just speaking from my own point of view. Yes, I think in a way for us to be able to say, well, this project can now be adopted as being viable. I think, like he mentioned, I think in one of the posts, I think I saw it where the individual was mentioning that he needed about $3 million or so on. I think that's another another aspect. But also beyond that, we need to ensure that this commodity is safe for consumption. And there's a lot that goes in that. We need to make sure that it's tested. So you cannot just say, well, last month or a few months ago we saw somebody and now can we go with that move? When people come out and say, well, we are seeing these changes to our equipment as a result of that fuel, then it's a problem on the side of government. So you really have to be careful before you adopt a particular technology. And I know in the background, such things that cannot be disclosed now are going on. So people are trying to verify, trying to ensure that this is actually a viable form of energy. So I think I'll reserve my comment up to that point.
Oh yeah, yes. Of course. Thank you. Yes. I think our viewer there has been helped with your explanation. I think going back to the issue of the pricing of minimum, I think what the government is suffering from my point of view, is the dilemma that minimum seems to be attached to our culture, and the citizens. It's also political. It's a political commodity. Citizens want to think that it should be always at that price where they can afford, and it should not just be expensive. We should not be suffering from the market trend and all those things. What do you make of that, Hassan?
Well, I wanted to ask you what you meant by political commodity, but I think I can think through that and assume that you mean that it influences our political landscape. Yeah. In a way, minimum has been at the center of the discussion, especially the average person. And the average person should be able to be able to command that resource. It's so much important in Zambia that if you look at even our neighboring countries, they have so much that they can consume, but us, we have always relied on minimum. So it's quite important, like you mentioned. Our people need minimum. There are actually households that have mealie meal, shima breakfast and up to supper. This is how important shima is. So, but we also have to think of other things. Like, I don't think government has really much to do with what is happening, other than what I mentioned in terms of appreciating the producers of the maize, paying them a decent price. But also, in a way, I feel as a country we should start thinking of even diversification in terms of the food that we consume. Look at what is happening now. There's high levels of drought, and maize is water intensive. It needs a lot of rainfall to grow. From I think we grow maize for about 3 months.
3 months,
yes, up to the time it's ready. And we in the interim you tend to have 2, 3, 4 weeks of no rainfall. That affects the output. We have to start thinking. We are moving towards an environment where I think this will become more common. Even as much as we may put measures to try and contain the situation, it may not work for a long term. And what we need, I think, is also to start thinking of other resources. Like, well, cassava is actually another alternative in terms of mealie meal. Rice is another alternative. Although they are also water intensive, but we can think of cassava, which is drought resistant. And cassava meal is actually consumed by a number of people, and I think that's another way that we can. So just diversification, not just being reliant on maize alone. We can diversify into other crops. Of course, it's very important to have nshima, but can we also have other forms that we can also consume? And also, even for the same maize, can we move away from the traditional method of relying on the rainfall and invest in irrigation, for instance? New methods of producing maize, being able to, since we are in a semi-desert environment now, where we receive very low precipitation levels, so we can diversify into other crops. We can try to come up with measures that help us to grow the maize in a more sustainable way by irrigation.
All right. Well, you're still watching Camnet TV Breakfast Show, your Friday edition, and here where we focus on business. And today, being the last breakfast show for 2023, we are focusing on the economic outlook for 2023. In the studio, we are being joined by economist Mr. Muya, who is helping us to break down some of the highlights of the year and also looking forward to 2024. You can still be part of the program by using the phone numbers on your screens. You tell us your concerns, and also, has 2023 met your expectations in terms of economics, your business, how is it doing, and also going to 2024, what are you looking forward to? Well, Mr. Muya, the International Monetary Fund extended credit facility, the ECF, we have seen that it is progressing, and we cannot overlook it. We have seen that the country had the second review, which has facilitated the disbursement of about $188 billion. And this money has come in the economy. The concern that is coming from citizens that we have not seen change. It has not even affected the dollar. And people are saying, no, I think this is just the same IMF of problems. As economists, what is your comment on this issue?
Well, to begin with, on that issue, we have, it's an indication that we are actually performing well. So they have different parameters, the criteria that they use to determine whether you are making efforts to ensure macroeconomic stability as well as debt stability. So as a country, I think, for a long time now, I think we have seen that we have been putting measures to try and limit how much we borrow, limit how much we spend on things that are not, bringing the expected economic outcomes. And we have also limited in terms of, we are being more careful now. We have our debt plan, management plan, which is helping us to ensure that we don't borrow beyond a particular limit. And once you meet all these different conditions, what that says to the IMF is that you are actually doing your best. So then they inject money into your economy, you qualify to be helped so that you continue on your trajectory of macroeconomic stability. And what we have seen now is this is a reflection of what I'm saying. So government has actually been trying to pursue policies that are intended to stabilize the economy. Having immediate effects, yes, there are certain things that will have immediate effects, and there are also issues that may have medium-term and long-term effects. The amount dispersed for the economy that we have, well, it's a step in the right direction, but we may not have it being sufficient for all the needs that we have as a country. But in a way, it comes to cushion. I think the most important question would be, what sectors in the economy do we need to focus on so that we stabilize? I think that's the most important question, other than can we say we have seen this? Can we say we have seen this? No. From my broad understanding of economics, I think the way the system works, you may not see the results immediately. Some of the results may actually come, maybe lagged, and you will see the effects later on. So I think the most important pertinent question now should be about what sectors should we focus on to try and stabilize. And then it's quite easy. You can see the exchange rate. We depend on most of these important
I think you can hold your thought there. We seem to have a caller. Hello, good morning and welcome to Camnet TV.
Thank you so much. I'm calling from Tika.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Let me contribute to my vernacular.
Sure, you can go ahead, sir. Feel free.
Yeah, yes. Over the concern which I had. Which came or so I'm not
Okay, thank you. I think you have made your point, sir. Okay, cheers. Alright, I think that is our same corner who recorded, and now we're just talking in terms of updates for those who are reviewing this process. I think we can continue with where you left from in terms of the displacement of the third installment under the program, the extended credit facility program that government has with the country. We are talking about impact.
Yeah, so the impact is not immediate for most of these programs. And what we see, of course, we have pressing issues, for instance, the exchange rate. I think many people have been talking about that. And that's where people want to see the immediate change. Also want to see prices stabilize, because that is key in determining that. But in itself, we are going to say, well, I think talking about the impact, to me, as much as it may sound very important, I think for me it is about which sectors should we target as a result of that, so that we stabilize. And I think I can isolate some of the issues to do with stability in terms of prices. We're talking about the exchange rate, we talk about commodity prices, we talk about trying to mitigate the high cost of living and so on. So these are some of the areas diversifying in terms of production. We want to see that sectors such as agriculture and the mining sector are well taken care of and so on. So in itself, trying to say, well, we want to see the impact today, it's not going to come. It may take some time for us to be able to realize that. And also the quantity that we are getting is just about there to help us stabilize, not to solve all the problems. So I think, to put it rightly, I think we can say, well, the money is there, we can use it for this and that, but it's not an amount that is able to cover all surfaces and stabilize the economy, but it can have an impact in the long term, and that can be realized later on.
Okay.
Maybe just to write on that same explanation that you've given, I know Mr. Kaptula asked the question of the concern for most citizens is that we have had 2 disbursements so far and they haven't seen the results.
Again, that's the issue to say. What results do we expect to see? I think that is a question. I know I'm supposed to be responding to that, but what do we expect to see? We want to see stability in terms of prices. We want to see stability in terms of the cost of living being lowered. We want to see an economy that is able to sustain itself in terms of our production capacity, adding value to our commodities and so on. However, like I mentioned, we have this amount which we appreciate, but this amount is supposed to be targeted to specific areas to try and ensure that we see the stability coming out. But in itself, we are not expectant of the fact that this amount is adequate to cover all surfaces. So some of the impacts will start to be realized with time. That's what I'm saying.
It's just part of the process to awaken the economy.
Yes.
Maybe
stimulate the economy.
You
want to stimulate demand, you want to stimulate supply and so on. So these are measures to try and ensure that we move in that direction.
Oh yeah. I think as we conclude, we can look at the debt restructuring holistically. We do understand that the process faced a hindrance with the bondholders after the restructured mechanism that government had put forward. It was rejected by the Euro bondholders. How do you describe the process this year? How has it been as an economist yourself? How do you look at the process this year, and going forward, how do you look at the
So the information has
projection?
been, so the information has been in the public domain. I think to the average person, what we have seen is that, of course, we struck the deal, and there was that hiccup, and then we have also again reached a staff level agreement and so on. So in itself, we are moving in the right direction as well. What you should see is that we have different creditors, people that we borrowed money from. We have people that are country to country, which is bilateral lenders and institutions like that. We have the Eurobonds and also on. That is quite easy because you are able to identify these people and talk to them, and that's how we have come up with this plan facilitated by the IMF. So it has faced those challenges, but I think we are also moving in the right direction. But the other part, the other chunk of the debt is being held by commercial lenders. These are non-state lenders. These could be pension houses, could be individuals that are just trying to save their money. And in itself, it's quite difficult to engage at the level that government engaged with the bilateral lenders. And in itself, again, this is another aspect. This is the other side of the debt that needs to be, restructured. And when you restructure, of course, we just want to see, can you give us more time? Can you reduce the interest rate? Can you cancel the debt? These are different ways in which we want to restructure. So describing the Zambian situation, I think so far with the lenders that I described, I think it's moving in the right direction. And I think if we are extended, we are given some time off, we are given lower interest rate or whatever comes out from there, from the proposed measures, it should be able to benefit us because we can actually use the money that we're supposed to pay back in terms of stimulating demand, stimulating production in our domestic economy. So in itself, we are going to develop capacity to be able to pay back. We are not going to run away from the debt as a country. We are going to pay it back, but can you give us time? Can we be allowed to create enough capacity to be able to pay back? So I think for me, there's nothing wrong with that. I think we are moving in the right direction, and I think the current government has to be commended for that. We have to pay back, but we need to come up with a certain agreement that allows us to pay back instead of defaulting. Yes. This is quite promising. The efforts that have been done so far is quite promising. But the other aspect of the bilateral lenders is quite difficult to engage.
The private debt.
Yes, so it's quite difficult to engage with those, and of course, efforts can also, if we find a mediator, we'll be able to do that and try to restructure that so that we are able to pay it in a longer period, or be able to be given some sort of a concession that will allow us to grow our capacity to pay back.
Oh yeah.
Okay, maybe just a final one. How do you review the year 2023 economically, and riding on the 2024 budget, how do you foresee the economic outlook in 2024?
So projections for 2024, of course, is optimistic, like I mentioned when we began. The year has been full of turmoil. I think we have seen ups and downs, especially the exchange rate. We all buy things from outside the country, and if you're an importer, and since we are a net importer as a country, we depend so much on goods that are coming from outside the country. So it hasn't been promising in the aspect of imports, because the exchange rate has really been unforgiving. Now, in terms of the energy sector, of course, we have seen also fluctuations, and I think we saw the highest ever recorded per liter at 29, which is, but also it's been there for some time now, so people have made adjustments, or people are making, in the process of making adjustments to be able to contain what is there. Some of the factors that we have seen influencing the economic situation that we're experiencing now are beyond the domestic mandate, which means that there are external shocks. I think what we should focus on as a country is to ensure that we do not only say, well, these are external factors, so we don't have any way to defend ourselves against these external factors. We should create capacity that will help us to evolve beyond a country that is highly vulnerable to shocks to a country that is able to put in place cushions that will protect us from those external shocks. And what do? We begin to increase our domestic production. We diversify our economy and so on. So looking forward to the coming year, we hope some of the measures and the budget that you alluded to will ensure that we follow that trajectory.
All right, I think, Mr. Muya, we have come to the end of the show. This is what we could accommodate. It has been an awesome discussion. I think we have tried to touch here and there, and of course we hope that we have helped our viewers also to review in terms of how the year has been. Thank you very much for making an appearance this morning. We hope to continue this partnership next year, that when we call upon you, you come forward, we discuss.
Compliments of this is one.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, Vincent, this is our last breakfast show for 2023.
Yeah, I'll see you in 2024, Mr. Otto.
Sure. And also to our viewers out there, thank you very much for being awesome partners, always tuning in to watch this breakfast show on Camnet TV, which is not just another channel. Today we are reviewing the economic outlook in the year under review. Till next time, that is in 2024, keep watching Camnet TV, not just another channel. I have been Afias Kaptula alongside Vincent Pili. Bye for now.